So anyway, Tony Pig says to me, you know, you're wasting your time as a record salesman. You should get a different job in the music business.
Tony Pig?
Tony Pig, the DJ who became famous DJ for
PLJ when he moved to the East Coast.
right, PLJ, and then he worked for NEW.
I remember him.
And then he worked for Regis. He was Regis for all these years, Regis's announcer.
I remember one time you had a party at the house,
Yeah,
and all of the neighbors, the kids, came,
yeah.
and they were all excited to meet. But his name was Tony Big. Out
Right,
there.
because that was his top 40 name.
Right.
When he was with KYA, KCRA in Sacramento. I called him one day and I said, hey, you're the #1 disc jockey in Sacramento, right? And he said, yeah. I said, you gotta get your ass to San Francisco, because this is what's happening now. There's this radio station, KMET, that's playing free-form music. Nobody's telling them what to do. Every DJ is his own music director. And you know how they do that? They take albums that somebody gave them, they bring them in, they say, oh, let me see, today I'd like to play 2 of these songs off the Dylan album, and I'd like to play this off the Grateful Dead, and they'd make a set. And as they go along, they didn't even have any of this stuff written down. They just start with something and let the spirit move them to whatever else was coming. And that was called freeform radio. And Tony said, yeah, but Rich, I'm the #1 disc jockey in Sacramento. I said, Tony, do you remember when you said to me, Rich, you got to get out of record sales? All this time I was a record salesman. I was the guy that walked into a record shop in whatever town I was driving. I had a Reno to Bakersfield at one point was my territory. And I'd walk in and I'd have, they call album slicks. It was covers of the albums. Just a piece of paper, and you'd fold it over and you'd say, here's the new
Wilson Pickett.
yeah. And
Etta James.
right. And he's naming all the right ones because all the rednecks in my local area go, we don't sell that music here. I go, okay, thank you. Pack up my bag, go to the next, Modesto, Merced. You know, all these towns were very, very conservative. They sold Mexican records and country and western, and that was about it. And Elvis, you know, I mean, certain rock and roll, of course. But I remember trying to sell a Miles Davis album, these guys, it was like, forget it. So anyway, Tony Pig says to me, you know, you're wasting your time as a record salesman. You should get a different job in the music business. I said, what do you mean? He said, Rich, you have too much passion. You are one of the most passionate music guys I've ever met. That's how we
Became friends.
became friends. We're all hanging out together talking about this R&B artist and this one and that one. Why don't you get into promotion? I said, oh, well, okay, well, someday maybe. So what happened was I was working for Chatton Distributing. I had left all these other companies. Bob Chatton, he was an ex-captain in the Navy when he was a younger man. He was a very, very interesting guy, very lean. He used to jog every morning before he came to work, and he expected all of us to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. So anyway, as the time went by, I started out as his record salesman, and I would notice while I was just there a few months, 3 different promotion guys quit. So one day he's in the office, he's going, geez, another one quit, I don't know, who am I going to get? I said, I want to be your promotion man. And he said, you? Why would you want to be a promotion man? I said, because I want to be a promotion man. I like the music. He said, yeah, but you're my best salesman. I said, I don't care if I'm your best salesman. I want that job in promotion. He said, no, you can't have it. I said, all right, I'll tell you what then. If that's the case, as soon as something else comes, Bob, I'm going to quit because I want to be a promotion man. Tony Pig told me I should be a pro. So anyway, he comes to me one day and says, all right, I'm going to give you a chance. I said, okay. So he says, take these records. He said, now you have to understand something. The two major stations, he said, we have Atlantic Records, we have Chess Records, we have all these different labels, and most of them are R&B black labels. So you have got to become very, very friendly with the two music directors and program directors of KDIA and KSOL here, and then, you know, we'll spread it around to the other areas. Those are our two stations that you... So anyway, I said, okay, great. So I'm taking my records now over to KDIA, this guy named John Hardy, who was a really nice... Their sister station was WDIA in Memphis, where B.B. King started out at this DIA as a disc jockey.
In Memphis?
Yeah. So anyway, I got a record that I didn't know anything. I was totally green. Nobody taught me anything. But a new big R&B artist came to town. Their record was given to me, and it was something like Aretha or an Otis Redding or some big artist. Well, I didn't know this. Okay, so I say, I'll give this record tonight to KDIA, because that's right underneath the Bay Bridge. That's what I leave, and on my way home, then I'll stop at the other radio station.
And give it to them.
And give it to them, and I forgot to give it to the other radio station. And I get home, and the shit has hit the fan. Ahmet Ertegun, the president and co-founder of Atlantic Records, is on the phone chewing my boss, Bob Chatton, a new asshole. And I get home and the phone is ringing. Joe says, your boss has called several times. What the hell does he want? I get on the phone and he said, did you have a good day? Yeah, I think so. Everything went okay? Yeah. Well, not really, Richard. Ahmet Ertegun called. They're ready to pull the label from us. No more Atlantic Records from us because you screwed up. I said, well, what did I do? Well, did you take the new so-and-so record to KDIA? Yes, I did. But somehow you bypassed KSOL? I said, yeah. He said, well, what was your thinking there? I said, well, my thinking was, I'll give it to him tomorrow morning when I'm coming back. And he said, so, in other words, you don't understand exclusivity? This one radio station is playing the shit out of this record because the only one that has it. And they're competing with the other radio station that is pissed off at us because we didn't give it to them. I said, well, nobody told me that. So then I go in and we sit down and he says to me, how are you getting along with John Hardy? The first guy, the guy that I ended up liking. I said, well, he's a very nice man. I said, he's very educated, but I said, I don't think he likes me. The shit at the fan again. He goes, what do you mean he doesn't like you? He's our biggest client. He said, why wouldn't he like you? I said, well, it's because maybe I'm white and he's black. And he goes, Jesus Christ, what did I get into here with this guy? He said, well, we gotta figure something out. So right after that, a few days after that, my boss calls me and he says, do you own a suit? I said, yes, I have a nice suit from the Cable Car Clothiers in downtown San Francisco on Market Street. He said, well, put it on. Tomorrow night, we're going to the Blue Fox restaurant. He said, have you ever heard of the Blue Fox? I said, yes, I've heard of the Blue Fox. It's supposed to be the most fantastic eating experience in San Francisco. He said, that's right. And the most expensive. We're going there tomorrow night. You know why? I said, no. He said, Ahmet Ertegun and Jerry Wexler, his producer, are coming to town and they're going to take us to dinner along with your newfound friend, John Hardy. I said, oh. So anyway, I get dressed, I go to the Blue Fox, here we are, man, oh man, I mean, Joan and I were eating tuna casseroles, you know, basically we're eating just whatever you can afford on 75 bucks a week. So I go in there and these people are waiting all over, and the thing I learned that night, which was just amazingly important to me, was that I was introduced to Ahmet Ertegun. Here's the guy who's all this music is coming from, and Jerry Wexler, his producer, that put Aretha back in the church and made her happening. He said, Richard, you sit over here. And he said, Paul, you sit next to Richard. And Jerry and I will sit opposite you. And Bob, you sit on the corner. I said, fine. So that was it. So now we start ordering dinner. And this place had, I mean, it's just amazing food. So, and they said to John, John, you order the wine, because they all knew that John liked to order the wine. This is what you learn when you're on promotion. He's the program director of KDIA. So they're coming to make nice, and, you know, in their wisdom, they must have said to my boss, Bob Chatton, you got to bring Rich. We're going to get him tight with John. And we're going to tell stories, and we're going to get drunk, and we're going to have a good time, and that's going to be it. And from then on, when Rich walks in with a new Atlantic record, John's not going to just greet him at the door and say thank you and then walk into his office. He's going to take Rich with him. So anyway, we had this amazing dinner, and Ahmet talked about his family. They were
Turkish.
From Turkey, and his father was the ambassador to Turkey in Washington. Anyway, so what happened was, when it was time to order the wine, John will order the wine, so John ordered a wine that my dad used to sell. So now I had he said, you know, they're always talking about the French this, the French that. He said, I got to tell you, California has the best and most wonderful wines. So, I said to him, you know what, John? That's exactly what my father has said to me. My dad's a liquor salesman, and he says that France has wonderful wines during certain weather, during certain years, because their weather fluctuates quite a bit. But in California, the weather is basically always the same. He said, that's absolutely right. So that was point one that he liked that I did. And then he talked about, he said, you know, the chef here came from the German restaurant, The Shadows, which was another famous place. And just by luck, my uncle had taken me there. My uncle Harry's brother, who was an ex-Marine, had taken me to these Shadows when I was up there. And I said, oh, The Shadows, and I named the chef or whatever. So now, John was like, hey, this guy knows his shit here. He's all right. So the next Monday, when I walked up to KDIA and I said, hi, it's Rich Totoian, they buzzed me to the the outer office. John came out, hello, Richard, come on back. And that was my first time going in there.